get into the meat of it, we really start talking about plans A, B, and C. We're also going to outline expectations and talk about kind of like internal self-talk regarding expectations. Margaret has a sheet of some sort. No,
I think we ought to get this out.
That is so exciting. Love it.
This is kind of, we keep pointing to this tiny little chart, and I actually made one that you can hold in your hands and see how all these pieces are considered collaborative problem solving and why they're all important, because today we're actually going in from planning into intervention a little bit, and we want you to kind of be able to classify which parts of the model count as which parts of the process. Does that make sense? Like, what is assessment? Well, that's problems to be solved, skills to be taught, talking about triggers, talking about patterns. The planning is actually kind of what we're doing today, talking about what are our expectations of the child, how do we need to adjust, what do we do about unmet expectations, do we use A, B, C, who's going to talk to the child, where are we going to do it, and then the intervention, which is actually the plan B process and all the things that makes up. So I'll be handing these out probably a little bit. So our mantra for today, because we're entering the planning phase and into intervention, is that our explanation for the child's behavior guides how we're going to intervene with that behavior. So again, just a quick review. If we believe a child is choosing to act out, choosing to be defiant, we are going to intervene in a way that's going to train them that we don't want them to be defiant, right? If we believe there's lagging skills underneath that, we are going to work on teaching skills, okay? So, we're going to talk about expectations a lot today. And as we reviewed in session 1, chapter 1, our youth have been through a lot of things. There's trauma, there's disruption, there's confusion, all those things. They're at the top of that pyramid that we talked about in week 1, right? They're the 5%. So they've been through a lot, so we know what works for other kids doesn't work for our kids, right? So everyday life is extra hard for them. And what, like I said, what works for other kids doesn't work for them. And as we discussed in chapter 2, lagging skills and the things that trigger those lagging skills can make it hard for children in our care to meet our expectations, right? So, first of all, it's very hard for a child to meet an expectation that they aren't aware of. Let's say a kid comes into your home and you have a routine for how you eat dinner in your home, but what they're used to in their home is maybe they didn't even have silverware, maybe they ate, you know, on the floor, like maybe they didn't even have food, you know, so we can't assume that they understand what we mean when we say this is how our household runs. They may not know, so we've just got to keep that in mind, have some empathy, right? It's also hard for a child to meet an expectation that they don't understand. So that's kind of like the next step. Maybe they don't know what your expectations are. And then even if you tell them what they are, it doesn't mean they're guaranteed to know what you mean by that. So in my household, when I say take out the trash, it means collect all the trash into one bag and then take it outside. In Anna's house, it might be go upstairs, take the garbage, and then go take the kitchen one and do the litter box or something. You know, I mean, we can't know that, and they may not have the skills to tell us they don't understand. They may just refuse to do it, or
a really good one that I like for this one is that they don't understand is, well, in our house we act respectful. Well, like, if you don't understand what respect is, it's going to be hard to meet that expectation, because that's a very broad, vague, there are many things that construe what it means to be respectful.
Right. And what it means to you versus what it meant to their parents, or what it means to them. Like, does that mean you respect them too? I mean, you know, that does come up. It's also hard for a child to meet an expectation that they aren't used to. Again, like they're not used to clearing their plate after dinner or something like that. So just being patient when you have a new youth in your care, when you're still trying to figure out who they are and how they operate, just remembering it does take time. Even if it's coded with like, you know, irreverent behavior, it's still underneath that there's probably some clarification and growth that needs to happen before they're actually settled, okay? So, it's also impossible for a child to magically develop skills that they don't have, even if they want to. And they probably do want to, underneath all that, you know, negativity and whatever else you might see when a child is acting out. chances are it doesn't feel good to them either. It doesn't feel good for you, and it probably doesn't feel good for them either. They may not be consciously aware that it doesn't feel good to them. They may tell you, but I like running away. I don't want to come home at the time you tell me to. I want to go have fun with my friends and get drunk and have sex and whatever. You know, that's fun. Is it really fun though? Because then they come home and they're in trouble and they know they've disappointed you and they feel maybe ashamed, or like now she's worried she's pregnant, or you know, they have a hangover or whatever it is. Like, you know, it's really a little more complex.
This is where we kind of really want to look at the, like, where, you know, we're taking steps back, like looking at the broader picture, and also, like, you know, digging a little deeper. I just think that, like, you know, for using the perspective that kids develop, if they, you know, if they can, then they're not going to want to do bad.
And that they can't just magically adapt to you and your family and your life without a little patience and support. It's not like when I nod my head, change. You know,
That'd be awesome.
that would be so awesome. We wouldn't have challenges, and neither would you. So remember that challenging behavior is not fun for kids either. They might just not know what else to do. That's why they're here, so we can help them, or at least try to help them. And sometimes we realize maybe we're not the right people to help them, or maybe they need a higher level of care, or something different is broken in their lives. But that's why they're with us. So we can help figure it out. And how are they going to learn a better way unless we help them? We have more skills than they do. So that's kind of our job. That's what parents do, right? They help children. So, as we discussed last week in session 3, it's important to look at the who, what, where, when, and why behind behavior. So instead of saying like, this child is defiant, this child is manipulative, we want to know where is this manipulative behavior happening, who is involved, what seems to be setting it off, and why. What is the skill that's missing behind that behavior?
So again,
There's your 5-second summary of what we did last week.
These were our problems to be solved, and that's our skills to be built.
Exactly. So this is about triggers, patterns, and lagging skills, which provide us with more information to set more realistic, effective expectations for our children. And we're going to do like a whole activity about that today, where we're going to look at kids that we've figured out already have some lagging skills, and are these expectations realistic or not for them. So, the expectations you have of your child should match their skill level, okay? Can anybody give me an example of, can anybody think, does this like resonate with anyone? Do you want to give an example, Colleen?
Just a child that say is 8 years old but is learning at a 2-year-old level. You would try and have them read a book that would be for an 8-year-old.
Exactly.
You would set them up with a book that was much easier to follow the words.
That's a great example, yes. And that can be true with anything in the household too.
I think too that when they may start having a tantrum or something, and they may be a lot older, but it looks more like a very young child tantruming, and I mean, I've seen that time and time again.
Yeah, you had some 18-year-old boys who would have
At your age is not fair,
It would just
right?
be
It's not a
totally
fair
different
thing.
than their age.
So, like weekend before last, I had a situation, remember that situation that just went all out of control. Sitting in training last week, I had like an aha moment. Because when we were talking about the when, where's, and whys, I was sitting here thinking, why did this kid blow up just because he didn't want to go to the cow center? And then after I started thinking about it and sitting in training, I was thinking, there's a kid there that goes to his school that messes with him and picks at him. I thought, okay, that's why the big blow up. He didn't have the skill to say, there's, you know, so-and-so's at the power center and he's going to pick on me. He didn't have that skill.
Yeah.
Instead, he chose to go all out.
All this big mess,
And
right?
have this whole week-long episode.
God.
And all he had to do, like me and you would have said, you know, I don't want to go there because I don't want to deal with so-and-so.
Yeah.
He didn't have that. But last week's sitting in training, I was like, this is scenario, but if I would have had this training the week before, our
timing was
when, where, why, and how, you know. So I was telling Tabitha about that. It was really funny. I was like, Tabitha, I got the aha about that.
So in hindsight, what do you think you could have done differently? Like, I guess it sounds like what you did was you thought about it and was like, oh, it might be this one thing. If I asked him about that, it might stop all this other stuff from happening, right?
Even if, well, the situation was kind of, you know, it's kind of, I was in a lot of pain. I was doing my mouth. But if I would have said, what is it about Pal that you don't like? That might have been an opening for him. And then if he was, I just don't like it. And because I think Tabitha had said, well, why don't you want to go to Pal? Because I just don't like it. I don't want it, you know.
There's got to be a reason.
Right, but if I would have been thinking, I remember that when school started, this kid that he always has a problem with goes to Pal.
So it was a matter of looking deeper and listening closer, which is what CPS is all about. It's not just about intervention plan B. You were only an assessment.
Yeah.
You were like, who, what, where, when. I'm looking at this kid a little closer. I'm putting myself in his shoes and going, if I were him, why wouldn't I want to go there?
Right.
Oh, right, that bully goes there or whatever.
Right.
Knowing that, you might have approached it, I mean, differently.
Yeah, and maybe he has a hard time, like, with, you know, being able to process the language out loud and being able to, you know,
Yeah, 'cause
identify
coach
his
him through
emotions,
saying
and like,
that,
so then
yeah.
you would have changed your expectation to be like, I know, I expect you to say, if you don't wanna go to Pal, give me a reason.
Right.
You would have, you know, adjusted your
And then I kinda
expectations to be
could've-
like, to coach it out of him.
Yeah, coach
and-
the way for him to say, Nolan goes there, and you know how me and Nolan, and we always get,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, so, because they do have a problem in
Yeah.
school.
So, and then the beautiful thing, we'll definitely get into this today, is that you had this big blowout. It was messy. It went on for a week. It was terrible. And then you had your aha moment, and you came back around, and you figured it out. And then you're talking in a calmer moment about what happened, and you're building rapport and relationship, because it's like now you have a shared understanding.
And he tried to blow out again, but
Oh, did he? I heard he apologized to you too.
he wants to.
He wants to.
But he started, you know, escalating, just the mention of pals, like,
It's a trigger now. You know how we say, like, the places people think?
yeah, man, boy, this again.
Probably a trigger for you too. At this point, you're like, oh God. We're not even talking about
No, you just use all my stuff. But yeah, that was crazy because last week I was like, I was sitting back there, I was like,
That's good.
Yay, that makes me happy.
yeah, it just was too late.
I'm sorry that we didn't start classes a week earlier. Okay, so expectations should match the child's skill level, and expectations should accommodate the lagging skills. So like if you know a kid maybe has limited verbal abilities or whatever, you're not going to want to expect them to use their words to tell you their deepest worries or something. You know what I mean? So we start small and increase expectations step by step depending on the individual child's pace and needs. We're saying when they first come to you and they have these high level of needs, we're going to be extra patient and we're going to be extra accommodating. And the idea is over time, we do want them to grow. We do want them to progress. We do want them to build those skills where able. And we may realize some of those skills may never, like you may have a kid that just won't ever be like highly verbal or something. But the idea is we challenge them a little more and more as we grow and we begin to understand here's where it's hardest for them, who, what, where, when, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I'm sure a lot of you have had a lot of experience with working with us and working with these kids, and I know you know what I'm talking about, that like it really does, you do have to do that, you know, for your sanity and the children's sanity, right? So we're going to do a little exercise about real expectations, and we're going to discuss some examples. So there is a handout in your folders
On the right-hand side, or
called Realistic Expectations, Season 4. Season 4, because we're in a sitcom. We're a reality show about foster care. Ride-alongs. Can you imagine? People would watch that. I would watch that. Does anybody want, has everybody found it?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to read aloud about Ryan? I'll do it if you don't want to.
Stephanie,
Thank you, Michelle.
Guess who's going to read about me?
Okay. Ronnie has executive functioning lagging skills. He has a hard time sitting still for long periods of time. Expecting him to sit through a 2-hour piano concert without fidgeting and being disruptive is probably unrealistic. Maybe someday this will be a realistic expectation for him, but right now it isn't because he does not yet have those skills.
So, executive functioning skills, what do we mean by that? Quick review. What might he have trouble with if he has and you can look at your organizing,
Sustaining attention.
yeah,
Ignoring distractions.
yes,
Memory.
Sitting for a while,
Thinking
doing homework or read a book or.
yes, exactly. Okay, so given we know that about Ronnie, the parent has figured that out already. You're his parent and you figured that out already. What other kinds of things might be unrealistic for Ronnie if we know that he has trouble sitting still and getting through 2-hour blocks of things?
What church?
Church, school, excellent. Both of those are excellent examples.
Even just sometimes sitting through a whole movie, even if
Yeah.
the movie is on video at home.
Yeah. Movie, restaurant, you know? Great examples. Those are all great examples. So how could we get, Ron, let's say he has to go to school, right? Or he has to go, there's somewhere he has to go where he has to sit in the car for a long time, like you're driving to Salem for court or something. What are some things we could do to accommodate those those lagging skills?
Stop at the rest stop,
Run around.
just after.
Let him know.
5-minute run around.
Okay, go ahead and start.
You always
We've
know
had-
that.
we've
Okay,
had
so
kids get
taking
out of the
breaks.
car and jump
Excellent.
jacks.
Handheld video game.
Handheld video game, which some parents may say, but I don't want to reward him and all, he hasn't earned that, but you know what?
It's about
Let
kids.
it go. Because you are making the drive better for you and everyone else in that car, okay? Who cares? What would we really have a concern about him playing with this game? I mean, unless it was a trigger and it was something that made him upset, or the running around. Like if you stop at a rest stop and you're afraid he's gonna just run off and talk to strangers.
Well, then we have a valid
You know,
concern.
but we'll figure out, maybe he's the video game kid instead of the taking a rest stop.
Just even like in class, like giving him like some things that play with his hands, or sometimes teachers are full of modifications of just letting the kid get up and walk around.
Yeah.
A lot of behavior classrooms actually have that built in and it's on IEPs. This is the kind of stuff that's classic IEP stuff.
It is. Or those big balls, like, you know, like I've seen classrooms
Rolling
that have those, yeah, so that they have to like concentrate on sitting.
So, and somebody in the class yesterday was saying for like church, they have a long church service, they have the kid attend the like, what's it called? Children's church.
Even though she's a teen, but she kind of functions at 7, 8-year-old level, so she has a fun time in that.
We figure it out, you know, or you could get respite during church or something. The point is you're adjusting expectations because you know this child is not yet at a point where they can sit through that period of time. All right, does anybody want to read about Mary?
I will. Mary has cognitive flexibility lagging skills. She counts on the same things happening at the same time every day. Expecting Mary to adjust well if dinner is going to be at 7 instead of 6 might be unrealistic. Of course, life is unpredictable and dinner sometimes needs to be late. However, Mary might struggle anyway. Have a plan to support her through it.
Okay, so what are cognitive flexibility skills again?
Off the schedule.
Yeah, going with the flow, right? Being flexible, black and white thinking, all or nothing. Yeah, change is extremely hard. Has anybody met a kid like this? I feel like they're all like this. Okay, so you always eat dinner at 6 and the family all eats together, but something happened. Let's say somebody got sick, you had to go to the hospital and everything's running late, so dinner's gonna be at 7. There's nothing you can do about that. And you can tell Mary there was nothing I could do about that and we're not having pizza like I thought, and she's still gonna be upset, right? So what other things might be difficult for someone like this?
An appointment that wasn't regular.
going out to eat, probably, because you have to wait someone.
You have no control over that, right?
You have another kid in crisis with Mary.
It's gonna be a mess.
So-
I would think transitions, like from school to summertime would probably be very different.
Yeah.
So bigger scale
Yes.
change, which is sometimes we don't notice, we don't think about that, because they're so, these kids are so detail oriented, it might be hard to see the bigger things.
I bet we could do IR trends around breaks.
I bet we could, I bet we could.
See them skyrocket a little bit.
So, you know, at this, I guess the point of this one, I kind of phrased it funny, but the point is, it's not realistic to think Mary's just gonna be calm if dinner is not ready on time. She's probably gonna have some kind of tantrum. And I'm not saying find a way to make sure you have dinner at 6. I'm saying, what can we do? What plan could we do to help support her through what's really difficult for her?
Not give her time.
Okay.
I mean, not to keep it away from her, but like, make it a thing so like when you start preparing dinner, then you can let her know, we'll be eating in an hour.
Okay. Yeah, so not saying it's gonna
Not
be
saying
6
it's gonna be
every day.
6, but this, when she sees you in the kitchen, then she'll know to expect about an hour or whatever. And, or if going out to eat, say, we're going out to eat in half an hour, and just
Okay.
kind of leave that open-ended with her.
So identifying times closer to the time,
Right.
kind of as you go. Okay, that's
Probably will give her snacks.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the kids,
That's
a good idea.
with, their appetites are so wishy-washy,
Uh-huh.
that I probably would be like, oh, so if I was like having like red beans and rolls, I'm like, okay, you can have your roll now, just 'cause I don't
Yeah.
feel like, you just start picking your battles when you do this foster care for a long time.
Yes.
You kind of have to just
Exactly.
bend some rules.
And some kids have capabilities of doing that, some kids don't.
Some
Right.
kids don't, and she
And
still
kid
might
by
fuss
kid
and cry,
situation.
but if you get into a power thing about it, that's just gonna make it a million times worse, and nobody's gonna eat on
Right.
time, right?
When I give them, when I'm late, I never be late. But when I wanna make them be happy, I give them like 5 grapes, take the knife and cut them in 2,
Nice.
and say every minute, eat one.
You wanna know why that's because that kid, these kids are so detail oriented, they will get distracted by like, okay, 59.
And by the time they finish
Brilliant.
with all of this, by the time they finish, it's time to eat, that some grapes don't stop them from eating because it's nothing but just like water, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
So they're not too full from,
Right.
you know.
I love that, really. I love
That's
that.
brilliant. That's really good. And if you are somebody that likes to be on time, you probably understand a kid thinking like
Right.
that. So you're more able to, you know, accommodate it.
She always tell me, I'm never late, but never.
I hate to be late. It'd be crazy.
The other
Okay.
thing would be if you say, Mary, dinner is going to be late and I really need your help. So, you know, bring the child in. I need you to peel the potatoes, or I need you to peel the carrots, or engage them in the process, because then all of a sudden their mind is engaged in what they're doing
Excellent.
and away from what
You guys are all
is
over
not
this.
happening.
Love it.
Yes.
I think sometimes they also just need to know that the food is there, so sometimes if it's just out on the counter, they know that there is gonna be dinner, that there is food there to eat,
Yeah.
because
good- that's
sometimes
good.
they're not used to having food.
Yeah, 'cause that's a good way to kind of step back and be like, why might they be anxious about this? Well, maybe
That's a
it
good-
hasn't been part of their
empathy
routine or
piece.
part of their life.
Another suggestion that came up yesterday, I think, was maybe having a check-in every morning about here's what's on the schedule for today. But also some concerns about doing that is that sometimes things change, and that, you know, maybe I guess having a little codicil in there that's like, well, here's what's supposed to happen today, and we might have some bumps in the road, you know,
They
but
did not hear that other part.
it's true, it's
You
true.
said.
But you said.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that. Yes, LaShawn.
It's like the girl that I have today, you know, getting here is a struggle for us, but her skills trainer picked her up today. So it went from, she didn't act out, but it went from like 4 times. What time is she gonna be here? What time is she gonna be here? To, okay, she's gonna be here at 11 or 11:30. Is she gonna be here at 11 or 11? And we went back and forth, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
with Luke.
You only have her?
Which is so aggravating. But you also know I can't tell her to stop because it's not
I
gonna
just
solve
answer
anything.
every
It's
time.
like you said, pick your battles, and we don't like to say there's battles in CPS, but we definitely I'm gonna let that one go. I'm not gonna fuel that, you know?
So, right on the in mental health, I usually write it down. And I'll say, you need to go back to your paper and look at the paper.
Okay.
Because, you will get frustrated if they keep asking you, because that starts getting under my skin.
Go back to your
So,
paper.
I'm like, okay, here's the paper, and then if you know she's gonna probably get rid of it, you can put it on another 3x5 part. Here it is, 430. There you go.
Sometimes I just point to it on the calendar.
Right.
That's good.
I do have a calendar and I always
Remember it's
tell
right
them
here?
to look up, I say, it's on the calendar, and then they don't go,
Yeah.
they'll
They'll still ask you, which may be about something else. That may be around, we need to interact, and I don't know how without
Yeah.
asking you for stuff,
Right.
you know?
That could be it.
It
A
could be.
good thing is
Combination.
a dry erase board.
That's what I have.
Yeah, I used to use that. I don't use it no more because it's kind of feel like I'm a professional now. But I used to use a dry erase board and that really
Wow.
I just feel like I want that to be last.
Great job with Mary, you guys. Excellent job with Mary. So let's read about Jacob. Who wants to read?
Michelle Monica.
Jacob has social thinking writing skills. He starts fighting at recess because he thinks the other kids are talking about him behind his back. Expecting Jacob to spend all afternoon at the recreation center without getting into a fight is probably unrealistic. This probably means we keep Jacob at home where he can't fight. We do want him to practice his social skills, but we have to be realistic and plan accordingly.
Okay, so what are social lagging skills about again?
Starting conversations,
Relating,
group,
interacting.
Understanding what they're saying.
seeking attention.
Yeah,
And not being paranoid about everything that's
Yeah.
to do.
yes.
Taking a moment and really listening to what the person
Yeah.
you're talking to is saying,
Yeah.
as opposed to assuming that you know that they
Yeah.
really don't like you.
And also understanding how you affect other people and how other people see you, right? So a kid that doesn't have these skills, like your guy, is like terrified to go to PAL or wherever. So what other kinds of things might be unrealistic to expect of Jacob if he's got problems in these areas?
Not how.
Maybe you go to a birthday party and Zoom.
Yeah.
It'd be very stressful.
Yeah. We had a woman in our class yesterday talking about she has a boy who's been in her home for a month and he never wants to go anywhere, and she's having trouble getting the recreational hours in.
She's having trouble with her family life because
It's part of their culture to go and do things all the time. That's how they are, and she's having to adjust her household to a point where, like, they're kind of staying at home more, and she and her kids aren't comfortable with that. But she also knows she can't force him to want to, and like she'll say, well, what do you want to do? And he'll kind of be like, well, let's go bowling, or I know that's not let's go bowling, and then they get there and he just complains the whole time, and he's taking all the fun out of it for everybody else. But she's still like, okay, he came, he's got his iPod, you know, whatever, easing him into it, right? And then, you know, we kind of brainstorm, well, what do we know what his concerns are? Like, is he afraid, like, he doesn't like interacting with people? Why? We don't know enough about the who, what, when, where, why. And so her thing is going to be, I'm going to ask him, does he want to bring a friend with him? Like, if he has a friend with him, maybe that will help. And then if it doesn't, find out from there what else. But just like you did, looking deeper and thinking there must be something. It's not just about me and my concern and that this is irritating for my whole family, but like, why doesn't he want to? We gotta solve this.
We even talked about another family where the youth in their home doesn't even want to be in the same part of the house that they are in. So it's like, yeah. And it's weird for them because they've always had like a very family-oriented household. And so it's like, what is he doing over there? Like,
It doesn't make sense to them.
you know, And we talked about, you know, like ways, you know, and like the kid, every time they engage, well, everything's all your fault, you know, and so we're talking about like, you know, like you can also just like parallel sit, like be in the same room. Maybe we're gonna read a book, that kid's over there doing the computer, to try and like kind of work towards slowly being able to have a conversation with them about it, was one of the
We
things
kind of
that,
get into that with
Oh,
Amy.
yeah, sorry.
I think sometimes you have to realize, if, especially if you get a DD kiddo or